Welcome to ReVoicing the Future, a Women of NAMM podcast presented by AKG. Just as one revoices a chord, ReVoicing the Future creates a completely new perspective on the invaluable notes that make up the whole. It will uplift women's voices in the music products industry, which have earned their time to be the root of the chord. Once a month, you can catch productive and valuable conversations with women working in manufacturing, retail, the nonprofit sector, music education, touring, and overall women who inspire us. Together, we can help shape the future of our industry, one interval at a time. This podcast is co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olsen. What's up, everyone? Welcome to ReVoicing the Future. I'm your host, Natalie Morrison, and we have Stephanie.
Welcome. I'm here. I just want to put out there that if I don't join any episodes, it's not that I don't care about the person. It's that we're all busy. And you have been like, I'm just going to do it. And I'm like, okay, great. I've been thinking about that. I feel like maybe Wendy said so. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. You're not on all of them. And I was like, oh my God, I hope people don't think I curate who I join. So I just want to put out there, I love you all. And I'm here whenever I can be. And also Natalie is just such an amazing lead gal that sometimes I just let her do her thing, and let her shine. So it's my disclaimer.
This is how we balance each other out.
Also, how you doing?
I'm good.
You're good? Updates?
Moving. I do want to say applications for the Women of NAMM Summit are going to be open and we're very close to it. So
keep an eye out for them.
Keep an eye out on it. Go on to the Women of NAMM website on NAMM's website. Follow Women of NAMM on all the social media platforms. There will be announcements about it. It's an amazing opportunity. Did it 2 years ago. Highly recommend.
Woo. And keep your eye out for the deep dives. Join the mailing list.
Yeah.
Stay involved.
Yeah. So this is my public service announcement. Keep up to date. Follow along. And it's great.
It's always a good time to be a part of Women of NAMM. It's always something cool going on.
I love it. So today's episode, it's a really fun one. And it's just a change of pace that I think we needed. Again, it goes back to my comment on last month's episode with Whitney.
Yeah.
I feel like I have these conversations at the moment that I actually need them most.
Every time. Yep.
Literally every time. So we have the incredible Shira Yevin, who is the founder of Gritty INPINK. And I'm just going to read a little bit of her bio, but she is an entrepreneur, artist, activist, and founder of Gritty INPINK. After forming her all-female band Shiragirl, Shira became known for advocating for women in male-dominated spaces, which featured her and her band crashing the Vans Warped Tour and created the Shiragirl stage for female artists, which hosted 300 plus artists, including rock icons like Joan Jett and Paramore.
We get into it. She tells the story. Get ready. Very fun time.
Yes, we get into it. In January 2020, she launched a new female-led platform to empower women within the music industry called Gritty INPINK, with the mission to achieve gender equality in the music industry. And Gritty INPINK has featured 280 plus emerging artists with a collective following on all major platforms. Boop, boop, boop. And she also has a cool platform, marketplace called INPINK.
Yeah, latest iteration is they're now adding to the many, many things that she does with this organization. Such a powerhouse. So Gritty INPINK is building INPINK. It's out and you can join it. I'm on it. It's awesome. It's a marketplace network that connects women who work in all aspects of the music business and industry partners and professionals who want to hire diverse women. So an access point, right? Like give people the access that they need in a very gate-kept area. So Amazing way to find other folks, to connect. And we hear membership might be coming, talks about it a little bit. It's rad. There's just so much that she's done with this and we get to hear all of it and also just bask in her authentic power.
Yeah.
I feel like we just kind of were also asking her, how does she exist and how can we exist a little bit more like Shira? Yes. So I think that's what maybe a lot of people will take from this. It's just a lesson in taking up space, right?
Also just a little bit of a look into the punk rock scene and that Riot Girl era.
Yeah, Warped. Oh, which was so rad. A corner of the music world that, a lot of you probably also may have been part of. And we get to spotlight that a little bit with her experience. And everybody's out there. Everybody's, grown up out of that scene and done rad stuff. So how cool.
I know.
I'm stoked for you to hear it.
Yeah.
We had a great time recording it.
Woo! So without further ado, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Hi, Shira. Welcome to ReVoicing the Future. We're so excited to have you.
Excited to be here. How's it going?
Good. So you are the founder of Gritty and Pink. But before we dive into what Gritty and Pink is and why you started it, I would love to go back to the beginning and how did you get into music?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up doing musical theater. Actually, dance was my first love. And then doing the musicals at camp and schools. And just really always loved being on stage. So when I went to college, I studied theater arts and I studied abroad in London. And that's when I recorded my first song. I met a producer out there and I was actually working on a performance art piece and I needed a song for that. The song was kind of supposed to be like a Britney Spears parody.
Oh my God.
And so we actually didn't end up finishing that song. And I used a Britney Spears song, but then after I went and found another producer and that's when I recorded my first 3 songs in London. So yeah,
Hell yeah.
That's how I got into the music side of things. Then I also was really active in like the Riot Girl scene in New York. And so I was around a lot of amazing female musicians, all girl bands, and kind of went from there. So when I got back from London, I was doing kind of more pop stuff in London, but when I got back, I put a band together and I had a DJ in my band, but I was also like, I want to be punk rock. So
yeah. Oh, that's so rad. And so it's cool how sometimes I feel like we can kind of surround ourselves with our people and then you don't really know how different it is in the wider scope of it, right? But like it sounds like you were able to find a community where you were growing into yourself among a lot of women.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an amazing community. Not a lot of people can see an all-girl mosh pit, being in New York City and being around activists. And we would protest the war, go to the Dyke March. And it was like a very politically active and just conscious community. And that's how I learned about feminism and bikini kill and zine culture.
Yes.
And so in a way, a lot of people have told me, oh, you were ahead of your time.
That's
but
very
I
true.
was really just tapped into the counterculture. There was no Barbie movie back then. So we had to discover feminism. I learned about it in school too, like in college, but you kind of had to dig in a little bit. It wasn't part of the popular culture ecosystem.
We had the founder of Tom Tom Magazine, Mindy Monk, on, and she was also part of the Riot Girl scene. So it's just so cool to see what you're doing now and then what she developed from it. It's this little like underground community that it's just so cool. I love
Mindy's
her.
awesome. I remember we played a Tom Tom Magazine showcase in Brooklyn once.
That's
and
awesome.
They featured my drummer, Rainy P, and that was cool. So yeah, love Mindy. Props to her. Yeah.
So what were some of those first moments of noticing the void of women on tours you were looking to, and what started to shape that activist mindset and sensibility for you?
Yeah, my thought was that was like, it must have seemed stark going from being immersed in something when you were starting to notice then that there was a lack in the wider ecosystem.
I think for me, it was really when I went on the Warped Tour. I started working for the Truth Campaign and I noticed there were no female musicians on stage. And I literally went up to Kevin Lamond, the founder of Warped Tour, who's now a close friend and mentor and actually an investor in my company. But at the time I went up to him and I kind of accosted him and I was like, why are there no women on this tour? And because I would talk about it with people and they would say, well, girls don't play this kind of music. And I'm like, no, I know that's not right. Because I'm from the Riot Girl scene. I have mad friends in like all girl hardcore bands, and I knew that it wasn't really like mainstream level, but I knew it existed, so it's like, why aren't these bands getting signed? Why aren't they getting played? And so, I went up to Kevin and he was up in arms. He was like, I try to bring on girls. I bring on the Donnas. They're too good for me. They don't want to come back. And he was kind of saying it was just hard to get women to stay on the Warped. It is a brutal tour. But the thing is, it was a bigger problem in the ecosystem. Again, why wasn't the radio playing these bands? Why weren't more record labels and management companies signing female artists? And so there was kind of this misconception. The rock radio would only play one female artist at a time, like literally in the whole rotation. So
wow,
this is before Paramore, but I was kind of part of that whole emergence, which is a cool story. I don't know if you want me to get into that, but
please.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's the origin story. It's your superhero origin story part of it. Like we get into it.
So I had approached Kevin. I said, okay, can we come back and host some girl bands in the Girls Garage tent? I had a DJ in my band at the time. And he said, great idea. Let's do it next year because it was the 10th anniversary of the tour. But you know, when you're 21, next year is like 10 years. We're like, next year?
No.
We don't know if we'll ever live to next year. You know what I mean? So we crashed the tour in a pink RV, just drove into the gates, like literally drove onto the grounds, parked across from the skate ramp next to the truth truck. That was our homies giving us the passes to get in, you know? And we started playing, like girls came running when the gates opened. They ran, they're like, what is this pink thing? You know, because even though it was all dudes on stage, the audience was still half female.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's actually cool? I got a message on LinkedIn just yesterday. And some girl was like, wow, I just rediscovered you. I saw you on Arlen's page. I saw your band play at Warped Tour in the MySpace days. And you inspired me to start a band and you changed my life. And I'm like, wow.
Wow.
So the fact that I'm still getting messages like that, like that's what makes it worth it, you know? But yeah, we crashed the tour. Kevin came up. We thought we were going to get kicked out. He kind of looked around. He's like, Shira, you know, and then he said, so you on for the rest of the tour? You know, and it was kind of both an invitation and a challenge, you know, because we did end up like following the tour. There were bets against us, you know, our little pink RV, like make it. But he said, if you can make it happen, I'll let it happen was his thing. And he said it reminded him of his days when he used to follow the Grateful Dead in a sandwich truck. So yeah, we were just playing like on the RV in front of it. I would climb up the top and we would do a crazy show. But I always just felt like the movement was bigger than me. And so when the tour rolled around to New York, I asked him, can I host some of my friends' bands at our RV? And again, he said, if you could do it, I'll let it happen. Somehow I got like Blondie's sound person and like this really big sound company to like bring a whole PA and sponsor us. And this was at Randall's Island, like Dust Bin of America. And, you know, so we did the damn thing. And then basically we got invited back to do an official stage the next year. People like to say, oh, she was given a stage. Like we still had to make it happen. We had to raise the money, the sponsorship. His team did take me under their wing and kind of teach me, okay, here's how to make a deck, you know? But 2005 was the official year of the stage. And we booked over 300 female-fronted bands in 49 cities in the US and Canada, including Paramore on their first ever tour. So that was pretty cool. And I have some good stories about Paramore if you're interested in that.
I'm a big Paramore girl. I saw them at Madison Square Garden last year and it just was like the most amazing night of my life.
Yeah. I saw them at When We Were Young and actually I was backstage and I got to chat with Haley for a minute. She gave me a big hug. She was very warm. She's very down to earth, but then her security guards literally like peeled me off of her. It was annoying because it was like, obviously she knows me, dude. Like, you know, I like passed her like a Gritty and Pink pin like through the security guard's arms. So yeah, that was annoying, but it was cool. It's funny because I just wanted to talk to her because she made the speech at When We Were Young about how in 2005, when they started, there weren't a lot of women in the scene. There weren't a lot of queer people. There weren't a lot of people of color. And, you know, and I just said to her like, hey, like, I appreciate what you said. Like, that's why we did what we did with the stage. And at the time she was really too young to understand it, but she's like, yeah, you were the reason why we were there. And I thought, you know, it seemed like a natural fit to get her involved in Gritty, but she's got so many people around her and a lot of gatekeepers. But at the time in 2005, she was signed to Fueled by Ramen, but it was really Atlantic Records. And they wrote Kevin saying, we have this girl, we want her on Warp. She had just played like an acoustic set at the Taste of Chaos tour. And he said, well, my stages are filled up, but you should talk to this girl, Shira. She's doing a girl stage. And so they contacted me and they sent me a CD demo. They told me it was the Female Thursday. That's how they described Paramore in 2005. So I'm thinking it's like a screamo band. So they sent me this like CD and it sounded like Avril Lavigne. Which like, you know, now we can be like, oh yeah, Avril. But like at the time on Warped, it was not cool to be Avril Lavigne. Like it was very pop, you know, and things are so different now. But I knew that she had a lot of support around her. I thought the music was great. It was just not what I expected, you know? Yeah. I think like maybe every now and then one of her like male bandmates would like do a scream in the background. But our whole vision for the stage was we're going to show that we can rock as hard as the boys can. So we wanted like hard rock, punk, screamo, metal. Like we wanted all that. We actually, like we had some pop acts, but again, things are so different now, you know? Like now Avril can play When We Were Young, but if Avril was on Warped Tour, she would have gotten tomatoes thrown at her. It was just a different, you know what I mean? People would have been like, what is this? So, but a lot of that also is because women weren't embraced.
You bring in more of the wide nuance of just expression with all these genres and you get more difference. But if you don't have it, and then you have to match that to be like, look, we matter, we belong, right? Like we have to be exactly what you are to, you know.
Right. And why is it okay for dudes to go pop, but if a girl goes pop, then she's too pop for it to be pop, you know, but Blink-182 can kind of sit on both sides, or Newfound Glory. But anyways, long story longer, the label ended up flying me down to Orlando to see Paramore in the back room of Back Booth. And Haley was 15 or 16 years old and her mom was there with the camcorder. She was. She was 16 years old, I remember, because we went in the spring of 2005. And once I saw the band live, I got it because they were phenomenal live. They were flipping over each other and seeing the crowd, and seeing, obviously, they had a ton of support already around with the label and the management, and they were already playing festivals and things like that. But I really wanted to see Haley and talk to her and like get her on board for our girl power mission. And she got like ushered into the van real quick, like, because I was there with my girlfriend at the time who had a mohawk and tattoos, and they were like, get Haley away from the scary lesbians, like they were very religious and just very like sheltered. But Jeff Hansen, who was managing him at the time, who was like the manager of Creed, he walked me around downtown Orlando and he said, Haley's going to be huge. You're going to see her up on stage shaking her titties. That's what he said to me. I'm like, this guy does not understand his audience. God. Like, read the room, like this poor 16-year-old girl, and he's talking about her, horrible. So I really wanted to get Haley on board, but she was just too young to understand, honestly. She did understand later, and she talks about that. There's a lot of articles that she talks about that. But at the time, she was like, why do we have to be on this shitty pink truck stage, And it's like, now she kind of sees we did what we did because she wouldn't have been on the tour, period. Neither would any of these women. And in 2006, we actually got Joan Jett to grace the stage, which was epic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she played Bad Reputation. She had me sing while she played guitar and sang backups. I felt like I was in the Runaways. Like, we were rehearsing before we went on. It was freaking wild. And that was the day that they started collecting things for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Warped Tour exhibit. So I got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Can we go back? Because I'd love to hear a little bit more about your mindset when you decided to crash, because there's this stereotype for women to not push it too far or there'll be consequences. So was that ever going through your mind, or were you just like, screw this, we're doing it?
It was there, you were breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the vibe of the scene too, right?
I was kind of like, screw this. Look, there was definitely a part of me that I was like holding my breath when Kevin came up, like I thought we were going to get kicked out. Like, but it was also kind of like we had nothing to lose. And my bandmate at the time, DJ Lava, she was very fearless. And she was like, let's go, let's do this. And so, I think when you have the support of your crew, you're like, all right, let's do this. We were also on a tour at the time that we called the Play As You Go tour. So we had worked on the Warped Tour with the Truth campaign the year before. So I knew a lot of the people, like I knew the guy at the gate, so that obviously like helped. We had passes and stuff. And I had also started working with Tim Armstrong from Rancid, who I met on Warped 03. He had just produced Pink's record. And he was like, oh, I want to produce you. So we had driven to LA in this pink RV to like record with Tim. And I recorded some songs with him. And then we were already there and the tour was rolling through Fullerton. We just felt like we had nothing to lose. And we had seen some bands sort of crash for a day in 03, but they did get kicked off. So like the fact that we got embraced was really cool. But obviously Kevin has daughters. I mean, he got criticized a lot for not having enough women on tour. But unlike a lot of these other promoters, I love the Book More Women Instagram handle, but I don't know if you've seen like the No Values tour. There's literally, it should be called the No Women tour. And they put L7 on the bottom. I'm like, come on, if L7 is going to be your only, like make them a headliner, put them at the top. I'm friends with their manager. I texted them like, what is this? He's like, yeah, we had them like redo the flyer, but they should still be higher up. So it is a little disheartening to see like all these years later, like, okay, we made progress, but then a festival like that comes out and they're just so brazen and careless about it. We're like, at least they live up to their name, But yeah, I mean, I think what was going through my head was I just always had this vision for a movement that was bigger than myself. And, a lot of people in the industry, managers said, just focus on you, focus on your music. You're going to get a lot farther if you just focus on you. Like, stop worrying about bringing other bands in, And I did get that advice. And, maybe they're right, but that was not, at the end of the day, I wanted to do something big. And I just felt like, okay, we have to band together. Women have been conditioned for so long to think that there's only room for one girl band at the bottom, tiny fine print of the lineup in a festival, or one girl played on rock radio. And so I was like, no, we need to get together. We need solidarity. And I also just love girl bands. I know some people say, oh, girl band is not a genre, but I'm like, I kind of love it. Like, personally, because I prefer
it. It is a genre. What?
I can see both sides. Like
there's a line of thought or something. Yeah. But
yeah, I'm just a doctor, right? I'm not a woman
but
doctor.
Like there's a vibe. I think there is.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, people that didn't understand it would be like, why is there a separate, they looked at it as like segregation or something. Like, why is there a separate stage for the girls? But it's like, you don't understand. Like these bands would not be here if it weren't for the stage. The idea is that we're funneling into the other stage, which is what happened, right? Paramore came back. They played a bigger stage the next year. And the following year, they played the main stage. Obviously there was other factors with them because they had a major label behind them and whatnot. But there were a lot of women. Pat is one example. I don't know if you guys know Tatiana De Maria, but I brought her over from the UK. She played my stage and then she ended up making inroads and playing other stages and other festivals and touring with NoFX and, Offspring. And so, yeah.
But I think it also is bigger than just that scene. Look at all the other girl groups. Destiny's Child, the Spice Girls.
Yeah.
And then even more modern, like Fifth Harmony and Little Mix. All of these girl groups are coming together. And yeah, maybe some of them are funnel in pop, some of them funnel in R&B if you want to really go down to the nitty gritty of it. But no pun intended.
Love it.
I didn't realize that.
But it's all the same collective thing. It's bringing women together, getting them on the stage, giving them the opportunity,
Yeah, I think the difference with some of those pop acts is they're all manufactured by dudes.
Yeah.
So it's
that's true.
It's who's pulling the strings? Who's the manager? Who's the producer? Who's the label? Who's profiting off of it? Are they making the money they should be making? Especially young girls. Young girls get taken advantage of a lot, because they just want the fame and they don't understand how a record deal is really stacked against them.
Yeah.
So,
which is what you were providing back then was just you were kind of the entry point for so many of these folks that were coming through that wouldn't have otherwise, right?
I think people thought first of all, there was a couple different ways that we affected people. People who played the tour, still, again, I'll run into people at a rehearsal studio and they'll be like, yo, I played your stage. Even a dude, I played your stage, my girlfriend and band. That was the best day of my whole year that year. You know what I mean? I was like, wow. Yeah. And for us, it was just another day, sweating our asses off building. We did everything to DIY the first year. We ran our own sound. We built our own stage. We really roughed it out there. As we kind of built it going forward for subsequent years, we figured out how to actually get the crew we needed. But yeah, the other half of it was the audience coming and people who sent me that MySpace message. They saw the stage and it never occurred to them that they could be the band, and these young girls that saw it and I want to be in a band, whereas they would just be coming and seeing dudes and being like, oh, I guess my place here is to be a groupie, a fan, you know what I mean? It didn't occur to them. Representation matters, and they had to see people who look like them on stage to know that it's okay to do it. So.
Hell yeah. And so that was mostly Gritty in those early days. And for most of it, right, was this, when did you start doing stuff outside of the stage at Warped? When did it become bigger than that part of the tour?
So after Warped 06, we took a break on the stage for a couple of years and I moved to Brooklyn and we started Girls in the Hood, which was a series in clubs. It was female-fronted bands, female DJs, and female bartenders. And we did a few different venues and got some sponsors behind us there. And so I never stopped. You know what I mean? This was always my thing.
Just shift.
And then Gritty and Pink, the name actually came from an article that was written about us. I have it on my wall. It says, Gritty and Pink, Shiragirl injects the male-dominated Warped Tour with hardcore estrogen. Which I think is funny because it didn't age so well. People would get confused if you read that today. But anyways.
In the moment.
But anyways, it's just cool to see back then how people were noticing. Because we were ahead of our time, I think, in a lot of ways, And so we kind of embraced the name and we wanted to do a tour. And then that kind of all got put on hold. I was doing a lot of touring and things with my band Shiragirl and got signed to a management deal. And I was starting to focus more on my own thing. But I never lost the vision to change the music industry for women. And then it really started back up again in 2019 when the Warped Tour 25th anniversary festivals happened. Yeah, this year will be 30 years. He needs to do something for 30 years. Wow. We're actually, literally, this is hot off the presses, but we are working on a little Women of Warped situation for the fall. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I was just chatting with Kevin today about it. But yeah, so anyways.
Wait, so a show?
Yeah, it'll be a show. But so I was saying it back in 2019. So that's when the idea to bring it back kind of came. We released 2 EPs with Tim Armstrong, produced by Tim. And, we were doing more because what we did was we brought back the stage for the last year of Warped Tour. This is really when it kind of came back. So last year in Warped Tour, which was 2018, which was the 19th year or whatever, we brought it back. We got a lot of sponsors. It was very cool. We got a lot of press, because obviously people were writing about it being the last year. And so Alternative Press and Billboard wrote about kind of what we did. And there were articles that came out specifically about, women's place on the tour. Because at this point, 2019, now people are talking about it. Just post Me Too, people are talking more about Time's Up and all that. And then in January 2020, we decided to launch Gritty and Pink as a monthly event series. So we wanted to do an all-girl jam, and we had the best female musicians in LA, like Eva Gardner, the bassist for Pink. We had Jess Bowen, Kiki Wong. We had all these amazing, Alicia Vigil, Britt Lightning. And it came together. It was epic. We did 3 months, Grammys, Valentine's, Women's Month. Every month had a cool theme. Then, of course, COVID hit. So we had to cancel Chickchella. That was April was going to be Chickchella.
Chickchella.
Yeah, I know. I'm still like, I'm going to do that one day, but they'll probably sue the shit out of me. Sorry. Can I curse on this podcast?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
So I love you, AEG. Just kidding. We're part of Live Nation. I think that for us, it was actually, in a way, like a blessing in disguise, because we went from being this local kind of LA scene thing to we started building our community nationally and even internationally, because we pivoted to live streams like everyone did, right? So we started doing Instagram live streams. We raised thousands of dollars for different charities, ACLU, Headcount, right? This was an election year. And then we started doing workshops on Zoom, songwriting, social media. We were just building up the community. And then from there, the following year, that's when the idea to launch a marketplace came. And that's when INPINK was born. So it's been a whole journey. But yeah.
So rad. Real quick, what is INPINK? Talk more about it.
Yeah. So INPINK is a marketplace to hire female talent working in all aspects of the music industry. So you can kind of think of it as like a female-powered Upwork, starting with the music business, and it's backed by Live Nation. And our big vision is to be the global destination to hire women in every industry.
Yeah.
But yeah, we realized that what do women need at the end of the day? To get hired and to get paid, period. So that's why we kind of went with this marketplace model. I was just starting to learn more about the startup ecosystem and the tech world. And we got into the Long Beach Accelerator. That was our first check-in for investment. And it was cool. Our first show back from COVID was this pop-up at Pitfire Pizza in North Hollywood, and sponsored by Mackie. Shout out to Mackie. And
I actually know that pizza place, which is so funny.
yeah, they've got like a really cool program.
Yeah.
But remember, we could only use stuff outside when you first started coming back. And I remember everyone was all like nervous, and it was like, it'd been so long since we did an event. So we did this pop-up, and basically we launched the marketplace that week. And within the first week, we successfully ran like over $2,000 in transactions. And we're like, okay, we're on to something. So that's when we started applying for different grants and investments, and we got into the Long Beach Accelerator. And then, about 8 months later, we got an investment from Live Nation. Shout out to Live Nation women.
Woohoo!
Allie Harnell. So yeah, it's been a journey. And now I'm in the tech business, and I wake up every day and I'm like, how did I get here? But
Well, it reminds me a little bit. We just interviewed, I don't know if you met her at our session at NAM, but Jinting that just started SheQ Audio, but she was just talking about how she just did this. She's not making it too, tightly clung of a thing. Like it's going to be the entity that serves whatever the community needs at that time. And it sounds like Gritty and everything you're doing. Like, I love how flexible you have been with it all. Like you've just gone with whatever was the need at the time, right? Which is so seamlessly, as you say, it's not just about you. It's your meaning. It's your mission in music and in life. It's to do all of this. And it's rad how just seamlessly, again, integrated this is with the rest of all of it. Like your career and your music and then your work has all kind of interwoven with this larger kind of calling that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had to kind of roll with the punches. I mean, when we first started, we were just going to be a community for female musicians. And then we realized we wanted to open it up to women working in all aspects of the industry because it's an ecosystem. We can support each other and hire each other. And we just had big visions. So that was an important part to us to kind of open it up. But it was originally kind of visualized to be almost like a LinkedIn for female musicians, like a freemium model, a community, and then you could buy a premium membership. And then from there, we just said, you know what? We feel like a marketplace kind of has more legs, but we are launching memberships as well. So
cool. So rad.
What topics or issues are top of mind for you right now with women in music?
I think that there's been a lot of sort of backlash around this whole diversity movement. We've gained a lot of ground in some ways, but in other ways, it's reflective of just the bigger political environment, and so we see it a lot kind of on the business side and the tech side. It's like something becomes trendy and everyone wants to invest in it and pay attention to it. And then everyone's over it, right? It happened with like crypto, and now it's like, it's all about AI, and it just, things kind of happen that way. And so I don't want diversity to be a trend that went out of style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that for me is top of mind. It's like, how do we stay relevant? And look, diversity is not just the right thing to do. It's better for business. It's been proven, you know? So I think it's like really driving that point home. I'm fundraising for my company. I'm pitching to a lot of investors. And it's like, some people are like, well, you don't want to like lead with the whole women thing. Because the thing is, we don't just want people to be hired because they're women, right? We want them to be hired because they're very talented and they just need access. We're trying to provide access to a gate-kept community. We're trying to just democratize that. So that's really what it's about on the bigger level, So I think that's something that's top of mind for me.
That's a big one. That made me think of this LinkedIn message you just got. Do you ever have people come to you? Because like you have such a strong connection to your just like advocate voice. I feel like that's just baked into also like what you create and everything. But like, do you ever have people that come to you and like try to figure out how they can get involved best? Like, how do you counsel people to find their, maybe they're like the quieter advocate in the corner. Like how do you help people? And do you ever find people come to you to figure out how they can best, do this work in their own way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, when people come to me, now that we have this platform, I say, first things first, create a listing, and some people aren't confident and they say, oh, well, I kind of do social media, but I'm not really. And it's like, if you run your own social media, you do social media. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of younger women, maybe there's like a confidence gap there, And so I'm like, first things first, sign up, create a listing, showcase your talents, your abilities. There's room for everyone, And the other thing is, joining our events. We do these all-girl jams, 50 female musicians doing themed cover songs. Can you participate? Come in as an audience? Can you, capture content? And so we try to really involve everyone. But I'm excited for this next phase. We are going to be launching a membership that's going to be more of a formalized membership with access to content, education, upskilling. We want to make sure everyone stays on the cutting edge of technology so that, we can close this gap. We're trying to close the pay gap. We're trying to close, this access gap. And so I think that people have seen with the Gritty community, we do get further together, And so people are hiring each other and they're giving each other gigs and getting access to opportunities.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it. I kind of want to pivot to a whole other direction. That's what we're doing. We're just, going with it because why not?
It's the 20s. That's what we do in the 20s is we pivot.
Yeah.
It's the pivot 20s, right? It all started with the pandemic.
Pivot 20s. So I would love to hear any advice that you might have for women who are passionate about something and they are just really scared that they're making the wrong decision, or if kind of modeling after what you did with Warped Tour. What advice do you have for any woman who wants to make change or put themselves into this industry in a way that might not have ever been done before?
Yeah. I think the number one thing is who you surround yourself with. So find mentors, advisors, and then, seek out those friends that will be supportive. I mean, we all have our doubtful moments. I have it all the time, and you kind of need that support system that says, keep going, you're doing a good thing. Side note, I have a little Post-it note on my wall, keep going. This was actually something Joan Jett told me when we were on Warped Tour, back to Warp for a second. When I was on Warped Tour, I actually had 2 girls in my band quit halfway through the tour. And I was so sad because I was like, I'm doing all this work to do this tour and I want to play. And I got a knock on my RV door and I opened it up and there Joan Jett was standing. Would you like to come in, Joan? She came in and sat on my couch and she just said, you know what? You're doing a good thing. You got to keep going. She's like, girls like that make girls like us look bad. She's like, you got to keep going. And I'm like, you know what? I have to keep going because Joan Jett just told me I got to,
I have to.
So, but it's like, you need those people. We all have those moments of doubt. You need those people that are going to be like, keep going. And that remind you. And you know them when you meet them, there's just people that are good vibes. And then there's going to be people that, aren't so supportive and you kind of have to keep your distance from them, but you can't let those people keep you down either. Because if I worried about what every single person ever said to me or thought of me, I couldn't get out of bed in the morning, And of course, anytime you run a community or events, there's going to be at some point, conflicts or whatever. And, you just have to kind of keep going, do the right thing, do what you feel is right. And so I think that's the biggest thing is just like, go for it. And like the other thing is, this is a big one too. I talk about this a lot. Ask and you shall receive. Like if people don't know what you need or want, they can't help you. So ask for help. And I really do think women have a hard time with this a lot, because we don't have that like male entitlement thing, but it's really, really important that we ask for what we need in life, and I think a lot of people are afraid of seeming needy, and again, that's a human thing. Like, I get it. Like sometimes like, I feel bummed and I want to call a friend, but I'm like, oh, I don't want to be a buzzkill, But if it's a true friend, right, they're there for you and you'll be there for them when they call and they're bummed. So, Yeah. Surround yourself with the right people. Asking you shall receive. Going back to the Warped Tour thing, it's like, we ask. There's two parts. Asking you shall receive. And then there's another thing that's don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
And if they say no, then you do it anyway, but you certainly can't get it if you don't ask for it. And I can't tell you how many times in a day that I'm like, there's something I want to ask for, but should I not, but it's like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. Like if I don't get it, I'm in the same place I was before,
But also like, look at where you are now because you didn't listen to that voice in your head.
Right. So, and you will piss people off, honestly, like that's part of the whole thing. Some people have told me I'm pushy or this and that, but it's like, those same people will be like, but you know what? I respect it because that's how you do what you do, and I'm like, pushy is also, I think, a very sexist word because men don't get called pushy. They get called, proactive or whatever, maybe aggressive at worst. But yeah, I mean, I get that it's not like the general operating mode for a lot of people, right? I'm an extrovert, and I am someone who's comfortable like being out in the public. I like public speaking, but I have my moments too, where it's still awkward for me to go into a room. And we were talking about networking, and to go in a networking room alone. And depending on the room too, right? Like if it's a room where you know a lot of people or you have a lot in common with the people, if it's like an all-female space or something, and it becomes easier, right? The more you have in common. But if you go into a room and you're like, the only whatever it is, and you just feel like odd man out, so to speak, odd woman out, but you just got to push yourself. I went to Arlen Hamilton's conference last week, Your First Million, and it was amazing. I met Issa Rae, Janelle James, TLC performed. Shout out to Arlen Hamilton. She's our strategic advisor for Gritty, but Gary Vee spoke, Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah. And he said the single biggest mistake that everyone's going to make at this conference is to not talk to enough people in the room. And, he was talking about the whole idea that, closed mouths don't get fed. And like, it is true. Like you have to speak for what you want. You have to be willing to go to that uncomfortable point to be like, I'm Shira. I don't know how many times I've just been like, I'm Shira, It's like, there's that weird moment where like, are they going to look at me like I have 5 heads, which could happen in LA, but, or are they going to be like, oh, hey, I'm Sarah. What do you do?
The worst thing that happens is you just get a weird look and then you move on and you get to feel like, okay.
But the best thing that happens, I was online at Gelson's the other day and I met the husband of one of the biggest songwriters in the industry. And I'm like, literally, because I said, how was your day to him? Because he said, oh, mine good. How was yours? I said, oh, it was good. It's a busy day with work. And he said, well, what do you do for work? And then we got into talking about Gritty. And he said, well, my wife is a songwriter. So there's so many people you could be standing next to on the line at the checkout counter, in elevator, right? And it's just connect and open up and talk because you just never know.
Mm-hmm. That's a very LA occurrence, I feel like. I feel like if you did that in New York, you would literally be looked at with 5 heads like, why are you talking to me?
You know what, though? I kind of feel like it's sometimes the opposite from New York because I will say New York people like know what it's like to like say hi to strangers. Like if you're ever in an elevator in New York and you look at someone, you say, hey, how's it going, right? You don't necessarily get into a whole thing, but you acknowledge each other. In LA, they do not talk in elevators. You can look at a person and you're like, hi, how are you? And they'll be like, they won't even say it back. They'll just like be like, yeah, stop talking to me. Like it's the weirdest thing. So I don't know. I find that actually New Yorkers are more friendly, but that's just me. It all depends on context, of course.
I was having a conversation with my friends over the weekend about the difference between New York and LA. And the idea of New Yorkers are kind, but they're not nice. And LA is nice, but not kind.
That's what they say.
Right.
That's what they say.
Well, you're about to be an LA-in, so there you go.
Not really. I'm a Long Beachin or whatever.
It's the same. I mean, it's different, but it's, you're on.
It's the same.
You're on the best coast. What? I said it.
Don't say that.
I know.
Just kidding.
I'm from New York and New Jersey. So my favorite people here are the people from the East Coast. I'll say that. So, yeah. But, New Yorkers keep it real. And honestly, it's going to serve you. Your New York swagger is going to serve you well in Cali because it does shock people sometimes. And also people are like, whoa, slow down, calm down. You're very loud. You're in my face. Like, but to Gary Vee's point, closed mouths don't get fed, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. So many people won't do that.
Yeah. Your hustle will take you far. And also your quote about the kind versus nice thing, that's just because people in LA, they'll smile. And then the second you walk out the room, they'll be like, oh my God, did you see her shirt or something?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how the conversation went this week.
But in New York, you walk in and they'll be like, girl, what are you wearing?
Yeah, it's to your face versus.
Yeah.
So one way you're not worrying about it.
Girl, you need to change, so that's me. That's my style anyway. But
I feel like a big theme of all of this too is like the concept of being okay with taking up space, which is so, it's so hard, but why is it hard? It doesn't need to be hard, but it is so hard. And I feel like though, making more connections and being less isolated is a way out of that.
It's because of what we've been conditioned as women, like growing up. It's like we can't take up too much space.
Yeah. It's rad to think that an antidote to that is like take up so much space and then you will get comfortable with it. But maybe there's like part of it where you got to just like yell from the rooftops for a little bit too, to like get the muscle going of like, it's okay to talk to a stranger in line. Like, right. It's okay to go to this conference and talk to everybody in the room because I know I need to.
It does. It feels awkward. It never stops feeling awkward. That's like what I want to tell people. Like people are always like, oh, you're natural. You're so good at networking. I'm like, but it still does feel awkward. Like, but you just have to break through that, you know? You don't ever stop feeling that. You just learn to like power through it, you know?
Pump up that internal voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you pick it apart too. Like we just said, maybe think, because it's, what are these underlying things? It's because like, we don't want to feel difficult. We don't want to feel pushy. Like you said, we don't want to feel all these things.
We don't want to get rejected. Like, we don't want to put ourselves out there and be like, hey, I want to be your friend. And someone looks at you like, I'm good. You know?
And again, which it's fine. Of course. Yeah, exactly. Said Nat. It's what we're conditioned to be the worst thing in the whole world, when maybe what we got to learn is like, we've heard this a million times. Not everybody needs to like you, but I feel like it bears repeating a million times to be like, as long as you are authentically yourself, living honorably, right? You're respecting people, you're okay. You don't need to be smoothing everybody's path to experience you in the world, or you're not going to get anything done.
Yeah.
Wow. I needed this.
I know. Reminding ourselves.
Yeah.
I also think too, this episode's fun and this conversation is really cool and different because it's very much like us telling the voices in our heads to like shut up and like actually go out and do it. And I think people need to hear that.
With an expert that knows how to do it. And so we're like, teach us, Shira, teach us, help us do this. Revoicing your head. I love that.
I've been thinking about doing an online course and like what it's going to be. It should just be like how to have stupid confidence or something.
I would go to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Would also, how to get out of your own way, like how to just do it, right? Don't take no for an answer from yourself or gatekeepers in your world.
Exactly.
It is two parts because you ask and then inevitably people are like,
then what do you do with that?
No, we can't do it. And then you say, okay, well, why? Oh, no, we can't do that because we just did that yesterday. Okay, can we do it tomorrow? You know, it's like whatever it is. It's like you gotta. There's always a workaround. Pivots.
Always a pivot again.
Right, the pivot 20s.
Pivot 20s.
It's like long release confidence. Like it's not just ripping off the Band-Aid of the initial ask. It's like, okay, how do you sustain this momentum and not blow yourself out?
Yeah.
So you can actually do the long-term change, which is like this wonderful organization you built over your career and has kept going. Or it's not even the organization, it's the momentum of just you through the many iterations you've done, you know, whatever it's wearing at the time, whether it's gritty, whether it's everything else. Like, that's cool. It's such a good example of like a long-term sustained mission that we can all learn from.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. Outside of Shiragirl and Gritty and Pink, who is Shira? What lights you up? And what could we find you doing on your time off?
Time off? What's that? Like lately I asked myself that. I love to hike. I love to do yoga, although I haven't had as much time as I would like to do that. You know, and stay active. I do love nature. I love going, of course, out to shows, not just music, but theater. I love musical theater.
Yeah, you were a theater kid. Oh, God.
You know, that tracks. When you said that you went to school for musical theater, I was like, oh, okay.
You guys can't see me, but I'm dancing around right now, making faces. I do dance competitions and I love tap dance. You know, I wish I still did that. Sometimes I go to dance class. I love being with friends and just keeping it real. You know, I do go to a lot of events and networking events, which still is sort of work, you know? So it's like, it's kind of work, but it's kind of not, you know, you get to be social. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just, I have chosen a path where my sort of work is my play sometimes, you know, that is good and bad, you know, because sometimes it can feel like you're always working. There's never an escape. But overall, it's great because I feel like, you know, when you love what you do, you'd never work a day in your life. So, you know, so I have that. But I'm always looking for more like work-life balance too, you know?
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
I have one final last question that came to me. It seems that you have such a good sense of yourself. Like you seem like you are exactly who you are. And did you always have that? And did you have to work at like holding on to that at any point?
That's a really good question.
I think that I have, for the most part, always been who I am. But again, that doesn't mean that I don't question myself on a daily basis. And so it's like every day you keep growing into yourself, you know? And like, that's why I said I surround myself with really good friends that kind of remind me who I am.
You gotta mirror it all.
A great example is my good friend Kana. She sent me the Long Beach Accelerator opportunity. And I looked at the website, as a lot of women do, and I decided that I didn't qualify because there was one bullet point that scared me or something. By the way, you know that men will look at a job description and they'll apply if they have one thing.
Yes, I was literally just thinking about that.
But if women have one thing that they don't have, they won't apply. So
Yes. Wild statistic.
So anyhow, I wrote her back. I said, thanks, but I don't think I qualify. And you know what she said to me? She goes, I'm sorry, is this Shira Yevin who crashed the Warped Tour? Shira from Shiragirl? She did. She put me on blast. And I kind of laughed. I was like, okay, you're right. I have nothing to lose. I'll apply. And I got it. And it changed my whole life, right? It's my first check-in. So, and then I took her out to Nobu to celebrate. But, but you know, but I love this story. I'll be telling this story on my TED Talks for years to come because it's true. Sometimes you do need the people around you to sort of remind you who you are, you know, and if I had listened to that, and moreover, if I hadn't expressed that to her for her to talk me out of it, you know, then I never would have applied.
Rather than just like, oh, thanks, and then said nothing.
Right.
There's so many of those points along the journey. It's so cool.
Right. So I can't reiterate enough how important it is, like keeping the right people around you. And then also when you don't vibe with people, like not listening to them. I've had people also come back to me because again, as I mentioned, when you run a community, you know, it is hard to keep everyone happy at all times. And I've had people come back to me like after a year and apologize to me because, you know, for something that they said or did to me. And I said, you know what? I really appreciate that because at the time I lost sleep over it because I'm building a community. I hate this idea if anyone could ever be, you know, upset about something, but you literally can't always be everything to all people. So it was great. Ever since then, she's back in the community. I'm getting her gigs. She's playing, you know, and it's just like, that's another thing too. I've apologized to people too. Like, don't be afraid to show humility, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in not burning bridges. It's a small world. It's a small industry, music, right? And even if you don't necessarily vibe or if someone rubs you the wrong way, you know, you just never want to burn the bridge. I always try to be the bigger person, you know, which is hard a lot of times if you feel insulted or jilted, you know, but you just got to keep going.
Yeah. Just be
like Joan
brave.
Jett said.
Keep going.
Amazing.
Thank you, Shira.
Thank you.
You're an incredible force. Yeah. And I'm so lucky to be able to call you a friend now.
Absolutely. Now that you're going to be on my coast, we got to hang.
I was like, we should go on a hike.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Yes. Amazing. Thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom with us. And I can't wait for everyone else to hear it as well.
Thank you so much. Everyone sign up for INPINK. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of ReVoicing the Future. You can subscribe to the podcast on all major streaming platforms or visit our website. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things Women of NAM. This episode was co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olsen. Together, we can help shape the future of our industry, one interval at a time. See you next time.